birthday, Sagittarius. How are you? Oh my goodness. So it's been a year since I recorded your last reading. This is a solar return tarot reading. And what that means is that it's going to be good from this birthday through next birthday. So from November, December 2021 through November, December of 2022. Now, I hope that you've already gotten a chance to watch last year's video that I recorded, because it might have some relationship to this reading, because some of that may be spilling into this reading. Okay, let me explain how this reading works. What I do for the birthday readings is I combine the astrological houses, so houses 1 through 12 of the astrological wheel. And what I do, and each one of those houses is connected to specific themes. And what I do is I pull cards for those particular houses and combined the themes of the houses and astrology and the themes of the tarot card to give you a more in-depth reading as to what is potentially to come for you here this year. Of course, this is a general reading, but when I find that when I do this kind of reading for general readings, when I build upon layers, they become a bit more accurate for a general reading. And of course, if you want a private reading, all my information is down below in the description. Okay, Saggy, let's get started and let's see what you have to look forward to this upcoming solar return year. All right, honey. So first house in astrology is about our identity. It is how other people view us. It is how we show up in terms of our ideals. Not so much like the ninth house. This is different. This is more of our identity ideals, what we believe about ourselves. It's the first impression we make on others. It's also how we choose to defend ourselves. So depending on what personal planets you happen to have in that house in your personal astrology, it would say a lot about these themes that I'm talking about. So in terms of tarot, though, for this upcoming solar return year, you got the Seven of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands. This is really great energy right out of the gate for your first house. I think I meant that. That was upright, by the way. I think I just showed it to you reverse, but it didn't come out reverse. It came out upright. So the Seven of Pentacles is all about really taking stock of the energy, effort, time, value, space we put into something. It's about really looking at the return of that. Like, you know, this is where we weigh, does the benefit outweigh the sacrifice? Or does the benefit outweigh the investment? Or does it at least match the investment, right? So what this tells me is that, because remember, it fell in the first house of our identity, right? So I feel, dear Sagittarius, that you have gone through, you're reevaluating yourself, like literally how you physically look. You're asking yourself questions like, does this blazer fit who I want to be presented as? Is this who I want to show up to in the world? These skill sets that I've invested into to make myself a better person, this workout routine that I've invested into and put money into to look better and feel better, is that actually working for me now? Does this still work for me? Does it still resonate? You know, again, we go back to the first house. How are other people looking at me? Is the way I'm behaving, are the things that I own, the things that I'm identified by, whether it's my car, my clothing, my house, whatever it is, right? Those tangibles, because Seven of Pentacles is tangibles. So you may be asking yourself, like, do these things properly and accurately describe what I want others, how I want others to see me, right? So you're coming into this birthday with a lot of questions. Now, I want to back up a little bit. We just had a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius here in early December. The new moon always brings us something new, right? However, this particular new moon was paired with the South Node, which means that in order for you to receive something in that area, you will have to let go of something. Generally, when we're thinking about new moons and we do new moon rituals, we look at them with the intention of we're bringing something new in, right? Full moons, we normally think of we're letting go. However, this solar new moon, you're both letting go in that particular area that your sun is in, and you're also attracting something new. So if your sun happens to be here in the first house, it means that you're probably letting go of an old identity and creating a new one. Okay, so you can always go to astro.com, get a free, or CoStar, whatever you're on, whatever app. So go see what sign, what house your sun is in. Okay, and that'll give you a little bit more what to expect. Because normally we see things unfold with these eclipses, you generally 3 to 6 months. Some people say a year. I always say you start really seeing the results early on into the 3rd and 6th month. So now, with that in mind, if you have your sun in the first house, that's how this eclipse would potentially be affecting you. Remember, we're talking about themes upon themes, okay? On top of that, you do have this card in the first house of reevaluating your identity, the things you wear, the things you own. How does that make me look? How am I presenting myself? How are others viewing me? Okay, and also, am I investing enough in myself? So this is a big question that I think as I'm doing this reading, I feel that Spirit wants you to ask yourself, because it's also paired with the 8 of Wands. Okay, so the 8 of Wands is about coming into something with lots of passion, with drive, with focus, with action is the key word here, okay? And it happens fast. So for some of you, now keeping all of these things that I'm throwing at you, the solar eclipse with this combination of cards in the first house, I'm getting the sense that literally, for many of you, you literally probably woke up one day and all of a sudden changed your entire wardrobe. Like you probably went to your closet and just threw everything out and started, aggregating whatever newness you feel like, or you're starting to feel like. This may not have happened yet. You may start feeling the inklings of almost like restlessness, because this is a very restless energy, okay? Another thing that's very beautiful about this combination of cards in the first house is that it tells me that for some of you, if you've been physically feeling tired or ill or maybe not as motivated, that this is actually confirming that you're going to start picking up an energy, even like sexual energy. This is very indicative of that as well. So if you've been feeling kind of not so good in that area, Saggy, no worries. It's coming back. But this is like beautiful energy because it's raw, it's fast, I'm going to take action. I'm going to upgrade myself wherever I need to upgrade, and I'm going to show up to the world as who I really feel I am now, who I'm evolving into, right? That's what this is. Okay, let's move on. And oh my gosh, we're already 12 minutes in. This is going to be a long reading. So like, go get your snacks, pause it, come back, whatever you need to do, because it's going to be a long one, Saggy. Okay, so that's the first house. Now, the second house is about our financial resources, like our own financial resources. It's also about our value system, like the self-worth we place on ourselves, also the self-worth we place on our products and our business, not because the second house is about business or products, but because the second house is about our value system. So therefore, it says a lot about how we place our products, pricing, all of that, right? But it's also about our personal investments. So whatever you're personally investing into, your money, your accounts, your whatever you have going on, okay? But not money that you have paired with someone else. This is not about resources you have with another. This is your own resources all on their own, okay? And you got quite a few things in here. It's funny, like when I was shuffling, these two cards wanted to come out. I was trying to just pull one, but two. First, you got the Hermit. You got the Seven of Wands, and you got the Empress. So, something, my dear Saggy, has got you feeling like you need to protect the information about your personal assets, which why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't anyone, right? But what I'm also feeling here is that, you know, you're really contemplating here, right? Contemplating what the next steps are in terms of your financial wealth, your financial well-being. You're contemplating quite heavily here on what you want to invest in. And you're kind of wanting to do this on your own. There's a sense here of you don't really want to, you may even feel a little resistance here with the Seven of Wands. You may even feel like, I'm really getting heavy here energy, and some of you know who have been watching, I get random messages sometimes. I'm feeling like some of you, this has to do with maybe your financial advisors that you're dealing with. You're maybe contemplating changing advisors or finding one, or you're maybe even not wanting to hear your financial advisor's advice, because this is a very defensive, like stay out of my business kind of card, right? But it can also be because it's paired with the Empress here. So it can also be for some of you who are in relationship. It could be that you're feeling the need to maybe not talk about your finances with a potential partner, or you're starting to maybe have to talk about your personal finances with another individual. This can be, you know, because the Empress could also represent your financial advisor, not just a love interest. This is also about protecting yourself, your comfortability and luxury lifestyle. It's almost like you don't want to interrupt this life that you have created for yourself, right? But because the Empress is in this combination here, it came out in this combination, I'm getting the sense that some of you are feeling it. Okay, it's going to go one of three ways depending on what group you are. Number one, there's a group of you here who are probably merging with another individual, meaning you're either getting married, maybe you're moving in with them, maybe your level of relationship is going to the next level, and you're feeling a little defensive. You don't really want to talk about your personal finances because you've kind of done it all on your own for a while, and you're sort of like, I don't know, do I really need to tell you this? Do I really need to tell you how much money I'm earning? Or do I? So there's a feeling of defensiveness here, and a feeling of protection, and I just want to do my own thing my way, okay? That's one way this can play out. The other way this can play out is that the Empress here could be representing a financial advisor or someone else, because, you know, the Empress is tied into abundance, right? It could also be, yeah, a little defensiveness and protection against like a new advisor. Maybe your advisors have changed. Maybe the company has changed. Maybe you need to move to a different, you know, portfolio, to a different company. I don't know. It's going to be different for everyone, right? This is a general reading, but apply it to how it best resonates for you. Now, the other thing here for the third group that I'm getting is that you're really starting to contemplate what is the next step in terms of resources, investment, and your value system and your self-esteem. What is the next step to bring you up to this Empress level? Now, remember, the Empress is, it's comfortability, it's luxury, it's having everything she needs. Now, I forgot to mention, this is not a gender-specific read. So when I say she, I'm just talking about energy. So for, you know, this could apply for any gender, okay? So please apply gender to this reading, to how it best resonates for you and what's true for you. But this is, again, about really contemplating needing to be alone. So Spirit's advice here, because this energy is coming in very heavy. When I was shuffling, there is an insistence on two cards coming out instead of one. Like literally, like you'll see if you review, I'm shuffling, one of these cards was meant for a different house, and it literally flew and like wanted to be here on the second house. So I left it there because that's how this, you know, thing works with spirit and cards and reading and yada yada. Okay, so that's the second house. The third house is about communication. Okay, that's the crux of the third house. Communication, it's also can talk in your personal astrology. It can talk about your neighbors. It can say a lot about your siblings. It can say a lot about like the day-to-day going-ons that you have, like the barista you say hello to. I know I always say that in all my readings, but that's true. We can also talk about like short distance travel, the things that help us connect to others. So that could be vehicles to get to other people, like transportation to get to others, communication, our systems that we use to communicate through, whether it's email or, what have you. It's originally ruled by the third house, originally associated with Gemini, and Gemini is associated with Mercury. So think of all the things that you are warned about during a Mercury retrograde. All those themes usually fall in the third house. So communication, vehicles, transportation, all of that. So for you, you got 5 of Wands and you got 10 of Wands. Okay, my dear Saggy. And when it comes to communication, there's no one like a Sagittarius. No one can be blunt and brutally honest like a Sagittarius or a Mercury Scorpio or Mercury Sagittarius. I mean, these are the people who are like brutally honest. Ouchie, right? But that's probably why I love you all, because I appreciate that kind of honesty. However, my dear Sag, this year here, the solar return year in your third house, you got the 5 of Wands, you got the 10 of Wands. The 5 of Wands can be combative, but it doesn't have to be combative in a negative way. It can be combative, and when you're in a new, especially if you've joined a new, if you're hanging out with new friends, new associates, new colleagues, new coworkers, it doesn't have to be new, but I'm feeling that there's a lot of new here. And I'll explain why in a little minute here. As you're getting to know people and their style and the way they work and the way they communicate, there's sometimes conflict on the way to resolution, right? Because you don't know personalities yet, or even when you do know people very well, we evolve, right? So in working on projects together, we tend to have some maybe disagreements along the way of whatever project that is. It doesn't mean that it's negative. It just means that there could be potential quarreling, potential competition, potential struggle to the resolution, because when we're dealing with more than one person, more than one brain, more than one idea, more than one opinion, that's bound to happen. So this tells me that you're working, you got the 5 and then you elevate to the 10 of Wands, which is beautiful, because that means that you start at the 5, you end at the 10, which means that you find resolution to whatever arguments you're having with people. But what it tells me is that you're going to have a lot of communication this year, dear Saggy. And it's in the third house. So some of you may be in media and advertisement and marketing, and doing a lot of talking, a lot of projects, a lot of meetings, a lot of creative, a lot of, putting raw energy together into a team, a lot of action, because the Wands is action. So even though it's the communication house, the third house is communication, and it's traditionally ruled by an air sign, you have now air combined with fire, with this Wands, and Wands is fire, and Wands is action in the tarot. So OMG. Now, for some of you whose sun falls in the third house, like truly natally, this means that this solar eclipse would have aspected, new forms of communication for you, potentially ending relationships with people that you used to once communicate with, and entering into new contracts, new relationships, new communication with new groups of people, right? Because remember, the solar eclipse is about removing and giving this particular one that we just had. So that means that you would have had to have given something up in the area of communication. I'm getting the sense of people. So the groups that you used to meet with and communicate with, maybe there's been a shift in that, and now you're meeting with new people. Or potentially, for those of you who are writers, because the third house can also be about writers, you may have had to give up a certain concept or a certain way of, like a storyline or a plot. You may have had to give it up for the better good or the greater good, or because in order for you to get the new thing, you have to give something else up. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. So interesting, right? I'm going to come back to that. Okay, so fourth house. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. You have the Ace of Cups and you have the Daughter of Cups. Now, the fourth house quite literally can represent the place that you live in, like your actual home that you live in. It can also represent either the mother or the father, your mother or father. Okay. Most cases, it is the more nurturing parent, but not always. It's also it's below the horizon. The fourth house is below the horizon on our natal chart. So it talks a lot about like deep, interwoven ancestry knowledge that we carry with us. Okay. So it also covers our ancestors. It also covers, you know, like the people who came before us, our lineage, our sometimes our ethnicity, depending on what other planets and stuff is there. But in this case, for you, I'm feeling that this is more regarding your actual home that you live in or what you're doing in home. And I feel like there's a new sense of joy and love that's coming into it. So some of you could potentially be moving in with someone new. The Daughter of Cups here tells me that some of you have potentially a new baby girl coming into the picture. It doesn't have to be female, but some of you may have a new child coming into the home. Remember, fourth house, or maybe even some memories, right? Because the fourth house can be memories as well. So maybe memories of when you were a child and what that felt like. But more than any of that, though, I'm feeling that for most of you, you're just finally getting to a place in your home life that you're feeling very happy. You know, that you have Daughter of Cups and Ace of Cups, but it's also about new energy coming in. So a lot of you have like potentially new romance happening in the home space. Maybe you're not reinventing, but remodeling your home or refurnishing or, you know, changing things up so that it makes you feel, again, it makes you feel like the person that you are evolving into now, right? Because Ace of Cups is new. It's new love. It's a new feeling of emotional satisfaction. It's also new creative projects or new creative things going on in the home. Because remember, we're combining, right, the themes here. So there's something new. For some of you, it could also maybe be an addition, like literally a literal physical addition to your home that's going to allow you like an additional space, or you're doing something with the space in the home that's going to allow you to create a creative place for you to create and do whatever it is that you do that you love, whether it's music, art, or staring off into the wall like I often do. But I've digressed. Okay, so now we're moving on to the fifth house. Oh, if you have your sun in the fourth house, again, remember we're talking about potentially sacrificing something, losing something, letting go of something to gain something new. So some of you may have moved from an old neighborhood that you loved to get a bigger square footage maybe, or maybe you left an apartment to purchase, or you left something that, because fourth house can also be comfort zone, feeling comfortable. It could be where we are most comfortable. So you have potentially left something that's very comfortable and moved into a different space. For some of you, this can also be those of you who are leaving, you know, work from home situations, or the flip. So some of you may be leaving offices to now work from home. That could be part of what happened in terms of that sun in the fourth house situation, or even just these cards that we pulled if you don't have your sun there. Or it could be the flip. It could be like work from home and now you're going back to the office, and it changed that energy a little bit. So again, for those of you who have sun in the fourth house, this solar eclipse that we just had would have had you have to give something up in the area of your home in order to bring in something new. Okay. Now these are just potentials, right? Again, if we look at your natal astrology, it's going to be way more specific to you. All right. So let's move on to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth house. And then the fifth house is all about, the fifth house is like the best house. It's originally associated with the sign of Leo. I mean, and Leo, a high octave Leo is all fun, right? It's the romance, it's the leisure, it's also children. The fifth house also represents children. It's our creative projects. It's just like the things that make us feel good, that are the way that we self-express to the world, like our natural inherent skills and talents, that we put out into the world and the way we express ourselves. And you got the 10 of coins, beautiful, and the hangman. Gorgeous. So here in the fifth house, I'm getting a couple of storylines here. So for those of you who this applies in terms of the creative or romance, this is about finding your first of all, going into a different experience, because the hanged man is about going into something that's different, different perspectives, different ideals, different ways of thinking. And it was facing, the way it came out, it was facing the 10 of cups. So what that tells me is that you're going into something in a very surrendered kind of way, it's almost like you're going into a situation, whether it's romantic, creative, leisure, all these things that I just mentioned, or even having a child. I mean, there is a little babas there in this picture, right? So again, some of you are welcoming a new child into your space. But for those of you who are not, this is very much creative or romantic. And so the energy here is about the feeling of, it's almost like something's really great, really beautiful, but you're slowly like creeping into it because it's amazing and it looks to have everything that you want. Remember, this reading is unfolding this year. So if you're not yet there, just come back to the reading in a couple of months and see if some of this stuff has already unfolded for you, okay? Now, you're almost going into a situation like, okay, I'm going to go into it, but I'm also not going to like ram into it. Like I'm going to take my time. I'm going to pause when I need to pause. I'm going to take breaks. I'm going to observe the situation. I'm going to put myself in it. I am going into it. This is not, sometimes depending on what cards the hangman is followed by or following, it'll give us more of an indication if it means you're really pausing for a bit or you're going into it. This is you're going into it, but you're going into it in a very slow, being mindful and aware that this is different. And so you're almost like surrendering to the other, and you're kind of going into it in a way of, okay, this is new and this is big because it's everything. It's the 10 of coins, which is the 10 of pentacles. This is about having everything you need in the fifth house, my lovely Sagittarius. This is about having the creative projects you want to work in. It's about having the child or adopting the child that you want. This is about having the romance and the dating life that you want. This is about having the leisure that makes you feel so good inside. And you're like, holy crap, this stuff is good, but I'm also not going to take it for granted and go into it with like the 6 of wands, all bravado, right? You're not going into it like, I got this, I'm superior, I'm cool. You're going into it a little bit humble, not a little bit humble, very humble, being mindful, and you're being led here by guidance. You see how the crown chakra and the heart chakra and the throat chakra are all lit up here. So that tells me that you're also going in here with a little bit of support with your guides, whether it is you're praying or whatever it is that you believe in, or universe, help me through this, or thank you, universe. This is also a reminder to be, to have a lot of gratitude, by the way. This is a big reminder from spirit that in this whole transition and process that you're going, there's a lot of new here. There's a lot of raw energy. Your spirit is coming back. Your energy is coming back. And so in all of these things, though, please remember, especially with that combination, to be grateful. to express it, not just to think it, but to literally say it, universe, thank you, or whatever you believe in, or to literally tell the people in your life that you are grateful for them, not just think, oh, that's very sweet what they did. No, like express it, okay? All right, so now we're going into the 6th house. I told you this was going to be a long reading. Okay, so so for those of you who do have the sun in the 5th house, this solar eclipse would have maybe taken away an old project and brought a new one in, or maybe taken away a romantic partner you would have had to let go of and brought a new one in. That's sort of like where it could potentially affect you if your sun is in the 5th house. Now we're moving into the 6th house, and the 6th house is about our health. It's about our routines. It's about our workout routines. Nutrition can also be, and how we eat can also, depending on what's going on there, but usually it does sit in the 6th house. It's also about our work, like not our career necessarily, but like the place that we go to work, wherever it is that we're working at, or the conditions of our work, or the routine of our work, or what we can expect in the environment of our work life for this next year, okay? Because that's the 6th house. Now, in that area, you got the King of Swords, OMG, and the 2 Wands. So, you're definitely empowered here, my beautiful, lovely Sagittarians. This is a card of being very much in your power when it comes to your communication, your writing, your intellectual prowess here, your just your writing ability, your communication, your leadership also is huge with this card. It's also very hardworking, but it's not hardworking like Capricornian way. It's like hardworking, like work smarter, not harder kind of thing. Very, very much on top of your game when it comes to networking. Because remember, we're talking about the 6th house, which that can include your work life, right? And then you have the 2 of Wands. So I feel a couple of stories going on here. For a group of you, you're really having to decide between 2 different ways of managing your routines. Like it's almost like something has come up in this year. It's almost like you're living 2 lives in that area of work and your routine. So something may have disrupted your routine. There's something that's disrupting your day-to-day life, how you usually organize yourself. There's also potentially for some of you trying to choose diets here. I'm really feeling like there's an over contemplation here of, do I want to be vegan, or do I want to be pescatarian, or do I want to be pescatarian, or do I want to be like like there's this having to choose between 2 things in terms of and it could also be your work. It could be like 2 employers that you're having to choose between, or you could be working 2 positions, or you could be working your day-to-day job while you're working on your business on the side. So there's like 2 things that are happening here, but usually when we see any 2 card, it feels like you have to choose, like really radically choose. I'm not feeling like you have to radically choose here, dear Sagittarians. So if you've been wondering or asking yourself, do I need to give one up over the other in this particular area of the 6th house? I feel that for many of you, you can be in control of both at the same time. So whatever that is, whether it's you're going to be pescatarian half of the week and not the other half, or if you're going to maybe do Pilates instead of weights, or weights instead of Pilates, but now you decided you want to do both during the week. For those of you who think maybe I can do this job and this job at the same time. So there's something here that you are in control of. Also health, okay? There's something really nice. For those of you who are in the health industry, it's the same thing. It's about maintaining 2, you may be working on 2 research projects and picking up, like if you're scientist, doctor, research, there are 2 things that you may have thought you had to give one up to give them all like good, appropriate time and attention. But this is telling me that you have what it takes to go through both of them. Okay, now, 7th house is our relationships. This is the house that everybody wants to know about. So, you know, it's 7th house is our marriage lives there, our divorce lives there, the people we go into serious commitment with, not the people we're just dating, the people we just date, that lives in the 5th house. But the 5th and the 7th house can commingle, right? Because you could be fully committed with somebody and then have, you know, romantic dating moments with that individual. So, you know, they can both coexist if you merge them, especially for those of you who have beautiful, beautiful aspects between the two. That can happen. But anyhow, you have here another thing too to mention for 7th house. We also see all things related to legality, our contracts. That's a big thing for the 7th house, which is why both marriage and divorce live in the 7th house, because it's a contract, right? Whether it's verbal or written, it's a contractual agreement of sorts. And even if you are not married, but you're in a long-term relationship, whether it's poly or monogamous, it doesn't matter. It's an agreement that you've made with someone, and therefore we live in the 7th house. Okay. Very interesting, my dear Saggy. Okay, so you got the 8 of Cups, so you're walking away from something. There's a walking away, either from you or from another individual in the realm of the 7th house. Again, it could be contracts. It could be a contract that you walked away from. It can be a relationship that you walked away from, a marriage. It can also be a divorce that you decided not to have, by the way, okay? In most cases, it is about completely ending a relationship, because in this case, 7 of Cups is about many options, multiple options. So, or maybe life got chaotic in that area and you needed to minimize the chaos. 7 of Cups is about having a lot going on. A lot of people may have been involved. It's Cups. Cups is emotions. So it's about different aspects in your life pulling on your heartstrings. This could be that maybe you were in a relationship, but you have other options, or new options came into the picture. It could also be on the flip. It can be that another person walked away because they have other options, okay? But in any case, it's usually for the betterment of our own, what are our own needs, because we have a double cups here, okay? And also, there's a sense here, you see how the 8, so the 8 came in first and then the 7 came in. So instead of having a progression of numbers from like 8 to 9, we're moving down from 8 to 7. So that tells me that it can also potentially be bringing down the level of the commitment. So even if you are not necessarily completely severing a relationship or completely severing a contract, it can be that maybe you've gone back and amended a contract and made it less strict or less of something. Or maybe you had an engagement and now you don't. Or maybe you were in an exclusive relationship and now you just decided to open it up to other people. Hope that makes sense. So again, if you're someone whose actual natal sun is in the 7th house, the solar eclipse that we just had would have had you give up something in that area in order to gain something new. So it's very consistent with the tarot cards as we're going along, okay? Let's move on to the 8th house. I love the 8th house. The 8th house is the house of the occult. It's the house of our deepest psychological needs. It can talk about potential betrayal. It can talk about our deepest needs in terms of what we need esoterically. It can also talk about, in general terms, we see things associated with merged assets or mutual resources or resources with another. So, for example, things like inheritance lives in the 8th house. Our psychologists that we choose to go to, information about them can live in the 8th house. The type of psychology we're drawn to can live in the 8th house. It's also the type of esoteric work that we're drawn to. But most importantly, in general, we're going to keep it simple here for the purposes of this reading. And we're going to say that this has something to do with merging assets with or resources that belong to others or that come to us from others. So that can be your mortgage, loans that you get from others, your life insurance, your any insurance. Okay, so any kind of resource that comes from another source, another external source, which is very different from the second house. Remember earlier we talked about the second house, and the second house is about our own individual resources. This is like the combination of some resources with someone else. Okay, and so you've got the Daughter of Wands and the Wheel. So there are some significant, there's some karmic timing here. I'm going to pause a little bit and think about this because I have 5 different things going through my brain right now. Okay, I'm getting three things. First and foremost, some of you potentially are unfortunately having to deal with inheritance issues, meaning you're unfortunately have to have an inheritance. Now, I say unfortunately because obviously an inheritance is tied into a person's life usually, right? So there could be some, because the wheel is usually a very karmic, and that's what you got here. You got the wheel. So the wheel usually ends something, ends a cycle, ends a generation. It ends whatever needs to end karmically, like the timing. It's a timing. It's it's almost like a timing dial. That's how I see the wheel. It's very karmic. It's a very karmic card. It's a fated card. Okay, and it's paired with the Daughter of Wands. And the Daughter of Wands, so when you have the wheel paired with the Daughter of Wands, it's about ending an old way of being, right? To fully express a new way of being, right? I say being because Wands is action, okay? Now, and remember, we're talking about the 8th house. We're pairing it with the 8th house. So, sometimes this can be when someone passes away, it's like a regeneration of who we are, right? Now, that's a little bit deeper and I don't want to go into that. I'm picking up a lot of information right now. So this is why I'm stuttering or kind of pausing a lot, because I'm getting a lot of info right now. And I do extend my heart and love to those of you who are dealing with loss. So my heart goes out to you. For those of you who that's not the case, for those of you, this is about revamping, closing out the insurance people you currently have, closing out the mortgage you currently have, closing out the cycle. For some of you have finished paying off your mortgage. Some of you have finished paying off big loans, like student loans, for example, that would go in this house as well. And it's almost like it's got you feeling like a brand new person, because it's like, holy hell, finally that debt is gone, right? Like it's whatever you owe to someone else has met its karmic conclusion. Okay. It's, and I feel like this is good outcome. So for those of you who are a little worried right now, because I'm picking that up too, again, I'm getting a lot of energy with this 8th house. I want to come back to it. I'll get another clarifier for it for you. But there's like closing out of debt here, debt with other people, or also closing out partnerships with other people where your money is entangled together, is going to be something that happens. Some of it is going to happen forcefully, because again, the wheel sometimes makes things, it's karmic fated. It's like that dial, that timing knob that I was saying. And sometimes you don't have a choice. It sometimes comes from the external. Many times it is your choice. So you could have just put an ending to something here, but whatever it is, it's making you feel brand new. And I feel like it's a solo. So you're going from working with someone because it's the 8th house, or maybe you've gone into a pot of, like maybe you put your money in with someone else to purchase a piece of land or purchase something. 8th house can also be land because of the minerals, and land. Minerals are deep in the earth. 8th house rules that. So for some of you, you may have felt that for whatever reason, the partnership wasn't working, the resources, it's like the benefit wasn't outweighing the sacrifice. And so you've decided to go solo, but it's good because it's got your energy coming back. And now you can put yourself into it the way that you need to put yourself into it. Okay. So very interesting, Saggy. Woo, that was a lot of energy I just picked up. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the ninth house. And the ninth house is all things related to foreign affairs, all things related to traveling abroad, as well as the 12th house. The 12th house can also speak of that a little bit. It's also about, learning something, becoming the master and teaching it. It also talks about our teachers, the kind of education we're receiving, upper level education, grad school, any specialty schooling lives in the ninth house. And for you, again, you got the Hanged Man again. Okay, remember you got it here in the 5th house. See, you got it here, right? Which was romance, creative projects. You got it again now in the 9th house of foreign affairs. And when I say affairs, I don't mean affairs, okay? I know some of my Sagittarius friends. I know you thought I meant that. That's not what I meant. Okay, Queen of Cups. So I feel okay, a couple of things happening here. Definitely I'm feeling a connection between this 5th house and 9th house right now. I'm definitely feeling it. It's definitely calling me. So many of you are going to have opportunities here to create for foreigners or maybe create something that's going to be translated into a different language. Maybe there's a creative project that is going to allow you to work with foreign lands or people who are different from, people who speak other languages, people who live in other countries. There's a relationship here between something creative that you are creating. Also, romance can be a possibility. So there could be a potential for you to meet someone foreign or to date a foreigner, which I happen to know a couple of Sagittarians who are actually doing that. So there's something very beautiful and satisfying, my dear Sagittarius, with this Queen of Cups. You see, look at that beautiful imagery here. She's being supported by the heavens. She's being supported by her higher calling. And again, there's remember earlier we were talking about you're going into something like in a surrendered kind of way, like, it could just be like, okay, fine, I'll fall in love. Fine, I'll surrender to this. It could be this, it's the same thing, right? Because you have a Queen of Cups, which is all about love. It's also about high level spirituality. So being very content with yourself and that which you believe in. Your universe, your infinite intelligence, your divine, God, whatever it is for you, my lovely Sagittarius. Also, for those of you who are teaching something creative or teaching something, this is also an opportunity for you to teach things that matter to you, things that are emotionally fulfilling to you, to a different culture, something outside of yourself, something that you're not necessarily used to, and it's different. It's very fulfilling here. This is beautiful. You guys are moving into, I really want to know what's going on with all of you. So if you don't mind throughout the year, if you can leave a comment here and there, I just want to know what this is about for you. Okay. Let's move on to the 10th house. Oh, okay. So going back to, sorry, I'm like all over the place. This can also be visas, passports, like for those of you who are applying for visas and passports for other countries or whatnot. There's an element here of surrendering to just going with the flow. Because again, the Hangman is about pausing, sometimes surrendering to the way another country does their visa process, surrendering to travel, right? Like we don't know, there might be some changes that happen here with traveling, depending on how, obviously I can't talk to it here on this platform, but depending on what goes on now with new travel restrictions, this could be another thing that's happening here. There could be a little bit of a pause, but I see it good for you. Like there's something that's really working for you in your favor, dear Sagittarius. Even if it is waiting for a visa longer than necessary, you're like, come on, I applied for this past 4 years. Like, where is it? So there's a little bit of that going on to also keep in mind. Okay. Now, so if you have your sun in the 9th house, again, it would mean that you'd have to walk away from something. Maybe you're walking away from your country of origin in order to you have to give up something. The solar eclipse, new moon that just happened in your sign, you would have had to give up something to gain something in that area. So if you have your sun, your natal sun in the 9th house, some of you may have needed to give up your country of origin in order to gain a new passport or visa, or vice versa, right? Or maybe you had to give up traveling to one country to go see someone you are in love with somewhere else, or a new love interest, or maybe you had original plans to go do one thing in one place and now you have to go somewhere else. Or you had the opportunity to teach one thing, but you had to give that up to teach something else. You get my drift. Okay, 10th house now. 10th house is our career. It's our social standing. It's how the world sees us based on what we do in the world. So that can be our career. It can be the things that we advocate for, the charities that we're a part of and we're out front and center speaking for, what have you. Usually though, it is career. It's also on the parental axis. The 4th and the 10th house are the parental axis. So it can also speak about a parent. Usually it's the paternal-ish parent. Again, honestly, the more astrology I do, the more I see charts, the more I meet with clients, the more I'm convinced that the 4th and the 10th house are very interchangeable. You can't put the dad in the 10th house or the mom in the 4th house. Like I really feel like they both live on both sides of the axis. So it is a parental house as well as the 4th house. Okay, so my dear Saggy, you got the Diviner of Cups. Okay. And which is the Queen of Cups, which you already got here. Let me show you. You already got Queen of Cups from this deck in the 9th house, okay? And now you have it in the 10th house. So something about that 9th house energy is now spilling into your 10th house. So something about that foreign interaction, whether it's through your work or through your creative project or through a love affair or a love situation, or what you're teaching, it's now spilling into your 10th house, or it's affecting your 10th house axis or your parental axis, career axis. Okay, so now you have it here. That's that's an enunciation of something. Okay, so you're coming into your own in terms of potentially a romantic relationship you're coming into, or a project, a creative project that has stirred you in a way that you never knew it could. And you have that card in the 10th house paired with the Tower. Okay, so first things first. For those of you who have your sun natally in the 10th house, this solar eclipse that we just had, this new moon solar eclipse, would have meant you probably gave up a job, a career maybe, for another. Or, it could have happened in reverse, right? You could have had a Tower moment that came out of the freaking blue, weren't expecting it. Or maybe you were. Maybe it was a Tower moment, not because you weren't expecting it, but because others weren't expecting it and blew things up. But it's paired with the Queen of Cups. So the result of that blowing something up, whether it was because you didn't see it coming or they didn't see it coming, means that, and actually this exact same interpretation that I'm giving for the sun in this house will apply anyway, even if you don't have the sun there, Saggy, because of the Tower and that combination. So either way, it'll, just take it as it resonates. But you have a huge thing happening. Also, remember, it's the parental axis. So there could be some changes happening. It's parental axis, but it also looks at the opposite of the resonance as well. It talks about the home. So it could maybe potentially be about a parent's residence changing out of the blue or needing to change. Maybe you need to move them. Maybe you need to move them to a different location. Maybe assisted living kind of situation. That can also be a thing with these combinations, being on the parental access with that tower there. That could be a thing as well. And then having the Ace of Cups down below with the Daughter of Cups. So for some of you, you're going to have, you're probably in that place where you're starting to have to figure out what to do with one of your parents, maybe both, in terms of relocating them, finding them a different residence. For most of you, though, this is a career change. This is you left your career, you're going into a different career, you left your job, someone left you, career left you. But the result of it is the Queen of Cups. And that's a yummy, yummy card. That's you coming into who you truly are and the essence of how you express yourself. I mean, come on. There's nothing better than to be able to do what makes us feel alive and truly who we are, right? And that's what I see in terms of that whole combination with your 9th house spilling into the 10th house, Saggy. This year is going to be the year that you find. And with this 10 of coins here, it's where you're going to find a very nice equilibrium between all the things that you're doing, between your love life, your family life, your home life. There's a lot of you here are going to have new homes this year. You're going to move to a different location. Remember, we're talking about a solar return year. So from this birthday through next birthday, that's a lot can happen during that time frame, right? And a lot of you are moving into new homes, or maybe even having a second home type of situation. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the 11th house. And the 11th house is usually associated with our networks, like the people that we hang out with, our people that we learn from, study with. It can be that, our colleagues sometimes, not always, but, these are the networks. These are like the meetups that we belong to. Our friends are usually associated here in the 11th house. And you have a major change happening, Saggy. You have the 8 of Swords, and then you have that with the 7 of Cups. And this is, again, another card that repeated here in the area of relationships. 7 of Cups, 7 of Cups, 2 different decks, right? You got the 7 of Cups in this deck in the 7th house, which was also paired with walking away. So you're walking away from either a person, a situation, or a group of people this year. For some of you, it happened right before your birthday. For some of you, it's about to happen. And of course, others of you, it'll start unfolding throughout the year. But you're not going to end the solar return year the same way. Most of you are going to be in different residence, different job, different location by the end of this year. Okay? Now, going back to the 11th house, again, friendships. 8 of Swords is about not sleeping well because either A, you had a disagreement with a friend or a network of people that you used to belong to are affected by something you did, or you're affected by something they did. So you've got some chaos going on, and it is swords. The good thing about swords is that it's not something that's necessarily actually happening. It's more that we're feeling an anxiety or discord or an unease, that we're maybe thinking about it more than what it actually is reality, right? Not to say that your feelings are not valid. Your feelings are very valid, you're Saggy, but there's something going on in the area of your friendships. There's definitely a change happening. Potentially words were said between you and a friend, or you and associates that didn't feel well. Because again, swords also represents the words we speak, communication. And it's paired with 7 of Cups. So part of the anxiety here could be that you just have too many associations, too many friends to choose from, and it's causing you anxiety. That could be one way. The other way is that you're ready for a change, my dear Sagittarius. And the 7 of Cups, you're starting to see differences in cultures with this 9th house activity that you have. You're starting, and remember in the 3rd house of communicating with others and teamwork and all of that, you have this 5 of Wands, differences in opinion, right? And then if you go back to the 11th house, there's a very consistent relationship thematically throughout your reading, dear Sagittarius. And this is what it is. You have big change coming, and this big change is going to change who you communicate with, how you communicate, how you carry through your action, how you carry through your cerebral energy, your intellect. You're definitely causing a tower moment. Either you're causing a tower moment in your environment, or someone or something is causing something to shake up, right? Like the old foundation is no longer working. It has to come apart because something new, you have to make room for something new. This is huge. You have a lot of great energy, a lot of wands action here, which that means your energy is going to be tested big time this year, Saggy. So whatever you need to do, I feel like this reading is also screaming in terms of advice for you to really take care of your physical body, really take care of your energy levels, especially with this Two of Wands there. Like really take care of your body that you inhabit, right? Because you're going to need all the energy necessary to carry you through this year, because you're going to be busy. You're going to be busy this year. And you know, of course, I'm all concerned about me because I'm surrounded by Sagittarians. So I'm like, oh, great. And my rising is in Sag. So anyway, so Seven of Cups, going back to the 11th house for you. So if you have your sun, your natal sun in the 11th house, it probably means you have to choose between networks. You're probably having to choose between friends. It could be that there's an issue between your friendship groups. Like maybe there's a friend who doesn't get along with the other friend, and now you have to, because it affects your way of doing life, you're going to have to decide. You see how this guy's looking at his options here, and he's like pensively, he's thinking about them. He's like, who am I loyal to? You're really asking yourself about loyalty here as well. It could also be that you have seen evidence of certain friendships not being loyal to you. You may be seeing that. You may be seeing, oh, this person has been gossipy or not good to me. Who's loyal to me? Who am I loyal to? You're weighing your options here. You're looking, you're thinking. There's something about your new associations that's going to affect the trajectory of where you're going. And you know that. You know, you got to let go of some of that old weight, my lovely Sagittarians. Let's finish your reading off with the 12th house. The 12th house is all about things hidden, okay? Sometimes hidden from ourselves. It talks about our hidden talents. You know, it's where we can literally access like the rabbit out of the hat. We didn't even realize we had that rabbit in that hat. But it's the 12th house is all about the things that are there. They're always in the background, whether we acknowledge them or not, like the deep psychologies, right? Like rooted issues that we may have from like our past or childhood. It's also a house that's tied into, very similar to the 4th house, tied into our ancestry, but even deeper, more psychologically. The 12th house is also about how we meditate, how we rest. It's also a very dreamy house. It's a very creative house as well. It's the house of the hermit. It can be very hermit. It's originally tied into Pisces, so it's very Piscean. So, you know, dreamers and writers and storytellers and musicians and artists have a lot of like 12th house energy or Piscean energy. And you, my lovely Sagittarius, got the 10 of Swords and the 5 of Cups. The 12th house is also can sometimes talk about loss, things that we need to let go of, because it is the 12th house, right? So it's ending the wheel. So whatever ends sets the tone for your new beginning, right? And in this case, we're talking about a solar return year. So it's talking about things that need to be closed out before you go on to your next solar return. So there's some heartache here, right? The 5 of Cups is about having some emotional heartache. And the 10 of Swords is about feeling the loss and the pain. I mean, look, these are two cards of loss, but it's also about closing chapters to move into new, because that's what the 10 of Swords is. So the 10 of Swords is, you know, I wish you could see, you're going to see it in the thumbnail, but it's literally like she has her back to the entire wheel. So it's almost like it's almost like you're mourning when we have to mourn what we've left behind, right? Even when we know what we're moving towards is better for us. It's like when we leave a toxic relationship or a toxic workplace or any situation that's not good for us, you're still going to mourn the loss. You're still going to miss the people involved. You're still going to miss the project. You're still going to miss whatever it is that was associated with that. And there's a sense here that you really are in your own privacy, because the 12th house is also what we do in private. There's a feeling here that you may not be talking to people about the loss that you're experiencing. For some of you, it's going to be relationship. With this eight of cups here and 7 of cups in your 7th house, or some of you are going through a divorce. And some of you are actually getting married. So you're walking away from your singlehood into a marriage. So yeah, you're going to mourn your singlehood. Of course. Why wouldn't you? Just because your new spouse is wonderful, you still have the right to mourn what you've left behind, even if you know you're going into something better, right? But the point here, Saggy, when I'm feeling here, and it's actually advised for you by Spirit, is that you're going to need to take time on your own, go into hermit mode, because the 12th house can represent that, and mourn what you have lost. And a lot of you are already doing this. There's something you're missing. There's something you're mourning and grieving that the people have no idea you're grieving. Or maybe if people do know that you're grieving, it's like a very selected few. So, that's anyhow. All right, Saggy, that's your reading. It is an amazing reading. You have a lot of great stuff happening. Allow yourself to grieve what needs to be grieved. You're going to make I think I would say, if I had to say what's the hardest thing you're going to have to do this year, is like you're going to have to choose new associations, and that's going to mean a feeling of loss. Congratulations on all these new moves you're making. Congratulations on whatever this new career path is for you, your new home, whatever it is you're walking away from. Trust yourself that you're walking away from something for the betterment of you. Remember the energy of the 2nd house, which is your financial resources. It's okay to take some time out to really figure out for yourself what it is you want to do with your money. Remember that your energy, for those of you who have lost energy the past few years, months, or whatever, it's coming back, and it's coming back full force. If you do start having conflict in your new associations, with neighbors, new colleagues, whatever, it will pass. It's just part of getting into the groove of new environment. Yes, it's not too good to be true. This is not too good to be true. You are getting it all here. The 10 of coins, the 10 of pentacles. It's okay though. You're going to slowly surrender into it, because you're kind of like, is this too good to be true? It's not too good to be true. It's yours. It really is yours, my lovely Sagittarius. But take your time, go into it as slow as you need to. And I think that's it. Remember, the solar eclipse that just took place in your sign, depending on where your sun is in your natal chart, will determine, and also what aspects it's making to other planets. If you want a personal reading, I can do that for you. My details are down below. And yeah, happy birthday, my beautiful Sagittarius. Thank you to all the wonderful Sagittarians who have been in my life throughout the years. And happy birthday. Bye.